Call the board meeting of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and its subsidiaries to order. I'd like to first apologize for the delay. It's great to be back in New Jersey, and again, I'm sorry that we kept you waiting for the public session, but we've had a very productive series of meetings this morning where we had the Committees on Operations and Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management met in public session. The Committee on Finance and the World Trade Center Redevelopment Subcommittee met in both public and executive session, and the Committee on Security met in executive session. Their reports will be filed as usual with the official minutes of today's board meetings. The Commissioners also met in executive session earlier today to discuss and act upon matters related to proposed, pending, or current litigation or judicial and administrative proceedings, and discuss matters rendered confidential, privileged, or private by federal or state law on regulations or rules or decisions of court, and matters related to the purchase, sale, or lease of real property or securities where disclosure would affect the value thereof or public interest and matters. I'd like to start by asking our Executive Director and Deputy Executive Director to provide us with their reports.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you, General Counsel. Good afternoon, Commissioners and members of the public. Let me start with a brief update on airport workers' wages and benefits. Following board approval of a new policy in April, the Port Authority 2 weeks ago issued for public comment new minimum wage rules and benefit rules for non-trade labor service contract workers of entities doing business at JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark airports. All public comments will be considered. Following this, as we have previously stated, we will turn to airport concession workers, which for various reasons requires a different approach, and then to workers at all of our other facilities. In addition to the proposal surrounding the completion of Tower 3 at the World Trade Center, which we'll discuss in some detail today, the Board of Commissioners will consider the authorization of approximately $200 million in investments to create a more robust regional transportation network. We'd like to highlight many other efforts underway to move us back to our core transportation mission, modernize and improve service at our airports, as well as our continued commitment to make repairs and enhance resiliency after Superstorm Sandy. Our work is not merely limited to investments in customer service. We'll also hear today from our Chief Security Officer, Joe Dunn, with very positive news on lower crime statistics at the Port Authority bus terminals. Let me begin with Wi-Fi at the Port Authority airports. As you are aware, a major goal at the Port Authority is to improve the customer service for the people and businesses that use our facilities. We'll advance this goal today by revising our contract with Boingo to provide 30 minutes of complimentary Wi-Fi service to travelers at JFK, LaGuardia, Newark, and Stewart airports. Free Wi-Fi is already available in Atlantic City. Over the next 10 years, we are investing approximately $8 billion in the airports, including the redevelopment of the Central Terminal building at LaGuardia Airport. But to truly create 21st century airports, we have to address the customer experience at the airports head on. When we poll our customers, as we do annually, about 10,000 airport customers a year, free Wi-Fi is the amenity that they most often request. We've heard our customers' wishes loud and clear and have reached an agreement with Boingo to provide the first half hour at those airports for free. As you may know, the Port Authority is subject to an existing long-term agreement with Boingo made years ago. However, we have come to an agreement that provides significant benefits for customers. Boingo's subsidiary, New York Telecom Partners, will install, operate, and maintain the expanded Wi-Fi network that will allow for the 30 minutes of free service. Boingo will invest about $3.8 million in hardware and software that will expand wireless coverage and increase connectivity speed for our users. This service will be available to airport customers as early as this fall. We're excited about the opportunity to improve the customer service at our airports and look forward to board approval of this item today. Let me talk briefly about the sale of land and development rights on the Lincoln Tunnel Expressway in Manhattan. Another initiative that's good for the region and good for our customers is continuing to focus on core transportation assets and finding a way to increase non-toll, non-fare revenue as much as possible. That's why today we seek board authorization for the sale of land and associated development rights near the Port Authority property on the Lincoln Tunnel Expressway in Midtown Manhattan. These two lots, which total more than 11,000 square feet of vacant land together and more than 90,000 square feet of development rights, are no longer required for the purposes of the Port Authority. In February 2014, we issued a request for proposal seeking offers for the 2 lots. The Dermott Company's proposal for $115 million was ranked the highest out of the 13 proposals from 11 developers. As part of the deal, the Port Authority will maintain ownership and control of the Lincoln Tunnel Expressway while monetizing the associated development rights. Additionally, the Dermott Company will be required to develop a community open space as a through passage from 33rd to 34th Streets. This deal offers the best value to the Port Authority and to the public that we serve. It will allow us to dispose of our non-core real estate assets and provide additional funding to support our core transportation mission, while taking advantage of the strong real estate demand in the Hudson Yards area. The importance of realizing non-toll, non-fare revenue for the agency can't be overstated. This is a step in the right direction, and we will continue to explore additional non-toll revenue to support our core mission, to move people and cargo throughout the region. Now I'll turn it over to Deb.
Thank you, Pat. Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's good to be back in New Jersey. You have already heard today about one way we are improving the customer experience at our airports. Now let me tell you about a project designed to enhance service by reducing delays, the development of end-around taxiways at Newark Liberty International Airport. As it stands now, when flights arrive at Newark, they must taxi across our major departure runway. To maintain safe operations, which are of utmost priority, we must carefully control the queue of arriving aircraft. This practice can lead to delays. Today we are asking you to authorize $6.3 million for planning and professional services to review the development of end-around taxiways. These taxiways would allow arriving aircraft to loop around the runway instead of crossing it. This project would ultimately have many benefits. We estimate that end-around taxiways will reduce delays by an average of 1.5 minutes per flight. We can save airlines and passengers $26 million per year through time savings and reduced fuel consumption. This project is estimated to create 960 job years, $71 million in wages, and $316 million in economic activity over its life. This project also has significant environmental benefits. Reducing waiting time for aircraft results in less fuel consumed. We estimate that airlines will burn more than 13,000 fewer pounds of fuel, which will reduce carbon dioxide output by almost 1,000 metric tons and nitrogen oxide by 3 metric tons. The Board has already authorized the construction of additional taxiways at Newark and the overhaul of runway lighting electrical systems. This authorization is the next step in our efforts to improve safety and operational efficiency at Newark Airport. Now I'd like to talk about Path Sandy recovery, in particular Substation 9. While we continue to make investments at the airports, we must also pave the way for recovery and resiliency post-Sandy. As you all know, our PATH system sustained significant damage from Sandy, and today we are seeking authorization of $59.5 million to replace and upgrade PATH Substation 9 in Harrison. Substations 9, 7, 8, and 14 were affected by the storm, and this is the first project of our comprehensive substation replacement program at PATH. This is a vital substation providing traction power for part of the Journal Square Newark route. Already more than 40 years old, the substation retained extensive damage because of Superstorm Sandy. And as part of the Port Authority's resiliency efforts, we will elevate a 2-story steel-framed building, which will be elevated at the 100-year floodline. The electrical equipment will be placed inside to protect it from exposure to the elements. This will provide a reliable and secure substation with enhanced power capacity. We anticipate that 90% of eligible project costs will be recoverable through the FTA's 2013 Disaster Recovery Act. These are merely highlights of the various initiatives and capital projects we bring to you every month as we work to serve the needs of the residents, commuters, and visitors to the region. Thank you very much.
We'll now have a report by, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm pleased to report that year-to-date, crime at the Port Authority bus terminal is down 33% compared to the same period last year. In the major crime category, only felony assaults have increased, but it should be noted that 5 of the assaults recorded or for attacks on our police officers while they were effecting arrests. We have focused our efforts on quality of life conditions, with initiatives addressing the homeless, drug-related offenses, and other conditions that address both the reality of crime and the perception of safety our 225,000 daily customers experience when traveling through the bus terminal. We will continue to monitor and analyze our efforts at the terminal as we do throughout the Port Authority facilities and address plans to deal with emerging conditions as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, for your report. It's great news. I'll now turn it over to the Executive Director, Pat Foy, to give a report on the World Trade Center, Tower 3.
Commissioners, we've had a long, robust, and open discussion on Tower 3 over the last few months. Today, I will present what I believe is a significantly improved proposal that meets the objectives the Board articulated from the beginning. First, that any proposed restructuring must benefit the Port Authority and the public. Second, that potential risks be mitigated. And finally, third, that the Port Authority be fairly compensated for any role it plays. The proposal I'll outline now meets these objectives and requires only a minor modification to the existing agreement in place from 2010 with Silverstein Properties. First, let me begin with a brief update on leasing market conditions in Lower Manhattan, as well as improvements in the capital markets, which have played a significant role in where we find ourselves today. First, the commercial leasing market in Lower Manhattan continues to improve. For instance, leasing activity downtown in May is more than double the 5-year monthly average. Since the beginning of 2014, over 1.5 million square feet of office space have been leased downtown. The leasing pipeline continues to be robust, with interest across a diverse array of sectors, including technology, media, and fashion, in addition to more traditional office tenant sectors. At the same time, municipal bond markets have continued to improve since the start of the year. Muni bond funds have seen strong fund flows, which together with limited issuer supply have driven down yields. And as yields have tightened, underwriters are reporting greater interest in higher yield credits. Both of these factors are important to the proposed transaction. These improved conditions set the backdrop to the proposed modification of the 2010 agreement. SBI and its advisors, Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan, believe that current market conditions will allow SBI to move forward with the private financing and construction of Tower 3 and to keep Group M at the World Trade Center site. Let me describe the modifications, which we believe are modest. First, $159 million of existing escrowed insurance proceeds, which were designated to serve as a completion deposit for Tower 3 under the existing 2010 agreement, will be advanced to fund construction of the tower. $50 million of this amount would be released upon board approval based on an agreed process to order and fabricate tower steel and allow vertical construction to move forward. Beyond that, the only other change to the existing 20 agreement would be to allow up to $80 million of the existing public sector support agreement from 2010, already in place, to be used for any potential construction cost overruns, which we believe is highly unlikely given that the riskiest component of construction, the 8-story podium and the underground infrastructure, has been completed. The $80 million would be a minor increase from the approximately $70 million limit already in place, against a project hard cost construction budget of approximately $1.3 billion. SPI would be solely responsible for raising approximately $1.2 to $1.3 billion in Liberty bonds, primarily utilizing existing Liberty bond allocation, and raising $300 million of combined equity and or mezzanine debt. This is consistent with what was agreed in 2010. There will be no Port Authority or public sector direct guarantee of the debt that SPI will need to raise. The Port Authority and the public will continue in its role as agreed to in 2010, with a total of $390 million in combined backstop funding from the Port Authority, New York State, and New York City. All other conditions of the existing 2010 support agreement would remain in effect, including the agreement by SBI to pay back any use of backstop funds provided by the Port Authority and the public sector. Let me talk briefly about benefits to the Port Authority. As a condition of the modifications to the 2010 agreement, SBI would take back 2 floors of our lease obligation at 4 World Trade Center. Over the last couple of years, we at the Port Authority have been looking hard at our office space needs in both states and consolidating and densifying where possible, which created this excess space. By returning this space to SBI from our existing 30-year lease obligation, it will create an estimated $32 million of benefit to the Port Authority over the next 30 years, or about $14 million on a net present value basis. In addition to this incremental amount, the Port Authority will also benefit from accelerated payments of about $230 million from Westfield for early delivery of retail space at Tower 3. In addition, the Port Authority will benefit from accelerated net lease rent payments from SBI and common area maintenance reimbursement versus a scenario in which the construction of Tower 3 were indefinitely delayed of up to $97 million. As I said, our goals were that any transaction would need to appropriately compensate the Port Authority, and I believe these modifications just do that. Finally, from the public standpoint, proceeding with Tower 3 will secure the site for Group M and its 3,000 employees and facilitate a major step in the completion of the World Trade Center site and our commitments downtown. Here you'll see the capital structure under the proposed agreement relative to an assumed 2010 capital structure, with the $159 million of insurance completion funds included. You'll see that towards the bottom of the capital stack on the right-hand side, versus the illustrative structure on the 2010 agreement to the left. As the slide shows, the percentage of senior borrowing envisioned for the project declines from about 60% to a more conservative 52%, reducing the risk to the project. In conclusion, I believe that the proposed modification to the 2010 agreement that this board has discussed over the last several months clearly meets the goals we've outlined all along. The Port Authority will benefit from new and accelerated revenue, and potential risks have been appropriately mitigated. Upon approval, construction of 3 World Trade Center will advance under an agreement that is consistent with what was agreed to in 2010. Neither the Port Authority nor the public will be required to provide a direct guarantee of the SBI construction loans, and the bulk of the project will be financed by the private sector. And lastly, by approving this modification today, Group M will join Condé Nast and others in calling the World Trade Center home and maintain momentum at the World Trade Center site. Vice Chairman, back to you.
Thank you for that very informative presentation. Prior to making the motion on this item, I'd like to ask the Corporate Secretary to note any commissioners' recusals on this matter.
There are no recusals.
Okay, I'd like to offer each commissioner an opportunity if they want to say anything about this matter. Commissioner Schubert?
Yes, if I might.
Put the button on.
I'm sorry. There you go. I think that, as you know, Mr. Chairman, and I've been opposed to the deal, any of the prior deals with Mr. Silverstein. And let me just explain on the weighing situation for me and weighing the different sides of this. On the one hand, I think that there's a desire on all of our parts to complete the work at the World Trade Center site, the former Ground Zero, for so many different reasons, that it be done appropriately and with due deference to the significance of the site, on the one hand, so that we can move on to go back to our core functions with regard to the things that we need to do. For example, and one of the things I'd like to make sure that we do is the Port Authority bus terminal at 42nd Street. On the other hand, I would have to tell you very frankly that I have not been a supporter of Mr. Silverstein's in his iterations here, because I found that his history here has been to seek to amend his agreements that he makes, obviously for his benefit. And I think that in the process that we've undertaken here over the last number of months with regard to this deal, we've certainly have met a number of the significant objections that I've had, and I think several of the other members here, with regard to our role, that is the Port's role, with regard to Mr. Silverstein. And I agree with Director Foy with regard to the way this deal has been structured to meet those objections to prevent the port from undertaking any new guarantees and to basically force Mr. Silverstein into the private market where I think he belongs on this particular issue. Accordingly, and having looked at the materials that have been provided me with regard to this, I can support this iteration of the deal at this point in the way that it's structured because it meets the different things that I have with regard to it. But I would have to say this as a word of caution, and I guess maybe this is more for Mr. Silverstein than for anybody else, and that is, this is it. I will not support any other amendment on his part for him on this deal as we might go forward based on his prior history here, unless it's of huge value to the Port Authority itself personally. And I think that he should understand that this is it. This is our iteration of this. We've gone through this over a long period of time, Mr. Chairman, and as a result of your efforts and a number of others, particularly for Mr. Bagger, Mr. Lipper, and Mr. Steiner, this deal has been made obviously to the point that we can support it. But I think he should know that that's it. This is the end of it, and that's the end of the road for us.
Commissioner Lipper?
I echo those comments, and I'm particularly happy that the public will have Tower 3, which I always believed was a private sector project, and through the negotiations and the open, transparent discussions that has taken place with the public feedback and the press feedback, the Port Authority has been able to make a deal which is excellent for itself. It meets the criteria of no new net debt to the Port Authority or no new cash outlays by the Port Authority, so that we could dedicate all of that money to transportation facilities, one of which I am confident will be a new bus terminal at Midtown. And we're back on mission. The process has been robust and I believe sets an example for the future. I thank Scott, our acting chairman, for engaging and working very hard to make this possible, and all the other commissioners for taking a stand for the public and making sure that we're back on mission. So I think we've accomplished transparency at the Port Authority, and this is a new precedent for the future, and nothing in the future will not be apparent. I think our decision-making process has benefited from the transparency. I think we all agree to that, and we're back on mission. So thank you to all the board members for their cooperation and a lot of work that went into this, and thank you for the public and the press for its feedback, which so benefited us. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Lippert, anything? Commissioner Steiner? Okay. I just want to echo a couple of comments. First, I would agree with Commissioner Lipper that this was a very constructive process, and the public discourse, I think, of the board resulted in the best outcome for the Port Authority, for the World Trade Center, and for the public at large. As everyone knows, I've been a big supporter and believer that 3 World Trade Center should move forward, particularly with Group M, a very dynamic company, making the commitment to this site. And this would be the building that really fundamentally brings this site to completion and helps bring the site back to life. And those who've been down to the World Trade Center over the last 6 months, you've seen a dramatic difference of the vitality down there, the energy down there, and with Tower 3 going up and Group M moving downtown, I think you'll continue to see that. So I'm thrilled that we've all worked so hard and collectively have come together with an agreement. I would like to say, just in response to Commissioner Schubert, working with the Silverstein organization, I will say I believe they've been acting very much in good faith and been very committed to getting this done, and I want to thank them for their efforts on getting this done. I also want to thank Group M for staying so committed to the site and being willing to ride through this process and emphasize a point that the executive director made, which is as part of this approval, we'll also be immediately releasing, as per a construction schedule, $50 million so we can immediately re-begin the process to meet Group M's time frame as the Silverstein organization finishes up their financing package. And I think that the other thing that's important to know, I think that this ability for this deal to be structured and have it funded as a public-private partnership. Thank you, Commissioner Steiner, for the sound effects. as a public-private partnership is also a great validation.
I'm not ready to go yet. I'll call you. Let's say it's going to be around.
Let's give him a couple of minutes. Okay. All right. So as a great validation of Lower Manhattan, and that's quite all right. Thank you.
My ride home.
Okay. Next time, I'll give you a ride next time. I don't know about home, but I'll give you a ride.
I'll go to your house.
Anywhere. It's a great validation, I think, of the real estate market, the financial markets, understanding of the vitality of Lower Manhattan, and that Lower Manhattan's back. And the executive director gave the statistics of how we're breaking record leasing, both on velocity and on pricing at One World Trade Center, where we just recently signed a lease over $90 a square foot for a full floor in that building. And so, as we've gone through this process, the narrative that we saw from our seats where we were, that Lower Manhattan was picking up that energy, has happened, and that has given the marketplace and the private sector the confidence to come in and support this transaction. So I think that's a very important element here as we go forward. And I think the last thing I'll say is I do believe for the Port Authority, finishing the World Trade Center is part of our mission. And we as an agency can't rest until that mission's accomplished. And I think this is today, with an affirmative vote, will take us a long step forward on getting that done. So with that, I will ask for a motion to have a vote.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Now I'll ask the secretary if she would read the roll call.
Let's do this.
We'll do the roll call because that's what it says in my thing.
Okay.
Let's say you write it.
If you need my vote, I have
Okay.
to leave at 3.
Good. Okay, the speakers first. We're going to have to do speakers first. That's not what you wrote here, though.
You're liable not to have my
Okay,
vote.
you got to wait. Just sit down. Sit tight. Okay, our first speaker, as it relates to the World Trade Center, is Margaret Donovan from Twin Towers Lines.
Same bullshit.
Good afternoon. You are obviously poised to do what the board always does. You decide what you want to do and proceed to find grounds to justify it. Then, when members of the public object, you thank them politely, but never address any of their concerns in a direct manner that shows you can defend your actions. That is not in the public interest. In an interview last week, Commissioner Lipper asked if good things can come from a terrible event. His answer, only if we learn from it. But from where we stand, your changes never go beyond the cosmetic. You do whatever you need to do to look good, but never truly come clean. You always stop short. You do not seem to understand that this agency is mortally ill and are too squeamish to get all of the diseased tissue out. But when you are tapping the public purse, that is not an option. Everyone's friend Murray Bowden is always urging us to look forward. But as long as the past keeps contaminating the present, we have a duty to get to the bottom of it. The secrecy and confidentiality surrounding the Silverstein contracts has never been proper. His dealings with this public agency should have been laid out for all to see. We should never have had to bring suit in order to find out where his, quote-unquote, money has been spent. Confidentiality is meant to protect competitive advantage, but Mr. Silverstein has a monopoly at Ground Zero. Why are his affairs protected from the public eye at the same time he wants another public infusion? Why can't we know why the public has done so much to prop up a billionaire and why it continues? A little here, a little there, 50 million here, 100 million there. The public should never be forced to commit more to this man who has been so enriched beyond his wildest dreams by his connection to Ground Zero until we have full disclosure. He wanted to revisit the 2010 agreement, so let's do that. The public should never be, let's re-examine all of the commitments that were made then in the public's name and find out, do they pass the smell test? It is clear that there are creative and well-intentioned commissioners here who want to guide the Port Authority into a safe harbor, but we have no reason to trust the boards and executive directors of the past. We have said for years that your executive sessions are ultimately meant to control what investors know, and we hope that the regulatory authorities will not now shirk their duty to shine the light into the darkest corners and bring the sad swindle at Ground Zero to an end. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Richard Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Reckler. Is this on? I hate to throw cold water on what seems to be a celebratory board meeting, but I don't buy it. I don't buy what you're talking about. I don't understand why we are giving Larry Silverstein more money. He's already taken a tremendous amount from the public purse. As Margaret Donovan pointed out, we don't know his agreements with you. You've never allowed us to see them. You're in trouble now with the Pulaski Skyway, and it seems you may have a little trouble with the Martin Act. But I think the Martin Act ought to be applied to some of the other dealings you've had. And I'm not implying that anybody here has done anything wrong, because most of you are new members or relatively new members. But things have been done in this board's name over the past several years that are wrong. And the public doesn't know what's going on. We still don't know. We keep hearing about transparency. There's no transparency. There are all kinds of secret agreements the public knows nothing about. And yet we're asked to donate more money to a rich man. Now, we all understand welfare for the poor. Welfare for the poor is a good thing. But welfare for the rich? For a billionaire? The public purse for that? I find that very strange indeed. I think welfare for Larry Silverstein is a disgrace. I think to keep shoveling money, millions and millions of dollars, into that man's pocket is despicable. And why should the public, and it is the public's money, not your money, it is the public's money that is being put in his pocket. If he can't finish Tower 3, tough luck. Give it back to the public. Give the site back to the public. Why does he have control over Ground Zero in the first place? We don't know, because you have secret agreements with him which have never been made public. We have had to file a lawsuit. The Twin Towers Alliance has had to file a lawsuit against you to try to get that information out. We tried for over 2 years, and you refused to disclose it. And now you want us to approve another handout to Larry Silverstein? I can't understand it. I think you've all lost your collective mind. You claim to be working for the public. It seems to me you're working for a billionaire developer. As I said in an interview with Channel 2 News yesterday, why aren't there more people who understand transportation on this board? Why are there people from, it's overwhelmingly people from finance and from the real estate industry and from the unions. Where are the people who know transportation? That's what this agency is about. Come through the 42nd Street bus terminal sometime, or sit in one of those buses for an hour after you get out of the Lincoln Tunnel waiting to get into the terminal. Do that for a few days and see if you don't think that's where the money's better spent. Or come into LaGuardia, third world airport. Fly into LaGuardia instead of on one of your private planes. Thank you very much.
Our last speaker on this topic is David Stenke.
Hello, I'm David Stanka. I live at 114 Liberty Street, directly across from the World Trade Center. After hearing the previous speakers, I have to make a general comment in that we've heard some very emotionally delivered rhetoric, but I still don't understand how giving millions of dollars of Larry Silverstein's insurance money to him to rebuild his building is doling out money from the public funds. This is insurance money that was going to go for the rebuilding, and it's where it should go, and it's a good decision. I would start from there. Second, as a neighbor of the World Trade Center, I have to say that a lot of the questions that we're discussing here have to do with, will the World Trade Center be a success? Will downtown be a success? And as a very small property owner in the neighborhood, I would say that a lot of that really depends on a very large property owner in the neighborhood. So we depend very greatly on your success of your projects in a timely and efficient and effective manner to get this neighborhood going. I've been there since 1999. We have survived 14 years on hope, and hope is running thin. It's driven a lot of other investments in the neighborhood, make no doubt about it. There are buildings going up, but it's all based on hope and expectations of what's going to happen at the World Trade Center. And we still have 16 acres in the middle of our neighborhood that is ultimately your responsibility and Larry Silverstein's responsibility that need to get developed to get us back on track. Good neighbor policy demands that you look for options to get things done as best possible going forward. And it concerns me greatly to hear that members of the board are going to say, we're going to close our eyes and make no more decisions going forward. Don't pull the wool over your eyes. This has not been an easy project. There have been a lot of turns. Don't turn off your brains. Second, I would say from a financial perspective, if you were a private entity at this point in the investment cycle, you have put billions of dollars into the World Trade Center, and I have been publicly critical of some of those decisions that I felt cost way too much for what you were getting. All along the way, for 14 years, I've been there, and I've been writing comments, and I haven't been listened to yet, but I'm still trying. At this point, you've invested it. You're talking about cleanup activities. You're talking about small percentages of what you've already invested. And how is that investment ever going to pay off? It isn't unless the buildings get built, the buildings fill up, the buildings get utilized, the retail space gets underway and gets utilized, and you start getting that money back, and that's what's going to drive your future. So please, get it done and continue to look for ways to get it done in a fair and equitable manner. Congratulations on the agreement you've made. Thank you.
Thank you. We actually have two more speakers on this topic. We have Murray Bowden.
My time was for there, but I can't let this go by without addressing something. I've spoken here many times about cooperation. What happened here today, there has been a level of cooperation with issues that I'm aware of that's never happened before. I would now call this the new Port Authority. The thinking that went on here before doesn't exist anymore. I've got cooperation I never knew existed from all kinds of people I didn't get before. And I don't think that's well enough understood. So I've asked for this 30 seconds or a minute to say, this is the new Port Authority. Pay attention. The rest of my presentation will come after. But I couldn't let this go by without everybody knowing that this board's changed. This organization's changed. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And Jano Lieber.
Commissioners, as you know, I'm the Silverstein Project Director on the World Trade Center. And I've come to a lot of your meetings, and I've worked with a lot of you. And I come to a lot of meetings, and I think that it's sort of become routine that people stand up and demonize our organization and what we're doing at Ground Zero. And I just have to respond to a couple points, because a lot of what you hear month after month is akin to the sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. Because the truth is that Silverstein had received, after the court battles, $4.5 billion, and has given $3 billion of that to the Port Authority, and the balance has gone into building the buildings. So let us be clear, there's no mystery about where the money's gone. The Port Authority knows that. I don't know what the interactions have been with Mrs. Donovan's organization and her colleagues, but it's very clear the money has gone to the Port Authority, to the public, and we kept paying, we kept paying our rent even when the World Trade Center, which was meant to be full of tenants, paying us rent so we could pay the Port Authority. Continue. So I just want to be clear that we have made good, and we continue to make good, because this is a partnership in a truly public-private sense. And the other point is that because there's so many folks who fight hard for union members with good jobs, I just want to know that make sure everybody understands this is unionized construction. We are one of the few developers that is committed to unionized construction, that uses 32BJ to staff all of our buildings, that converted our security people to unionization. We are committed to creating good jobs at the World Trade Center that is going to make everybody proud of the rebuilding that we've created downtown with the Port Authority, with the private sector, and with the great companies that want to come downtown. It is truly a triumph of the Port Authority and the private sector that we're going to create it, and we're going to do it for the people of New York, and I thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay. Now I'd like to request the Corporate Secretary to do the roll call vote. Thank you, Ms. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vice Chairman Recca?
In favor.
Commissioner Lipper?
In favor.
Commissioner Linford?
In favor.
Commissioner Merdla?
In favor.
Commissioner Pacino?
In favor.
Commissioner Rosado? Yes. Commissioner Schuber?
Yes.
Commissioner Steiner?
Yes.
Okay. So we have the votes are in order. The item is approved. Also want to note that Commissioner Bagger wasn't able to be with us here today, but he had affirmed that he would be voting in favor of this if he was able to be with us. So we would have a unanimous approval of this transaction and this moving this forward. So it's terrific. Okay, we're now going to move to our next item here, which is public comments. An opportunity for the members of the public to comment on other Port Authority matters. This public comment period, which is going to be limited in total for 30 minutes, provides an opportunity for members of the public to present their views directly to the board, but does not provide for a dialogue. Members of the public wishing to discuss a specific matter with the Port Authority staff are advised to contact our Public Affairs Department. Speakers are asked to comply with the fixed time limit of 3 minutes. We have our first speaker is
Senate.
Okay, is Senator Loretta Weinberg. Welcome back. Thank you for all of your focus on the Port Authority and particularly on the bus terminal. We appreciate your focus there.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. I know that you're all happy to see me back here, but I am here to address a different issue, although I wouldn't mind hearing about the internal review of Bridgegate that you've been promising me since last October. But that's not the main reason I'm here today. I'm here to address the board regarding the magnitude of transportation problems for the residents of my district. And I'm glad to hear from some of the commissioners that there is a new light being shined on the Port Authority bus terminal. You probably know that along with my colleagues, Assemblyman Gordon Johnson, who is here, and Assemblywoman Valerie Huddle, we recently hosted a transportation forum to hear from residents of District 37. And if I may, I would like, through the Port Authority commissioners, to thank the members of your staff who traveled to Teaneck and listened for several hours and have tried to be responsive to many of the issues that were raised. Over 100 residents, people who ride the buses every single day because they have to get to work. Over 100 residents attended the hearing after a full day of work just to be given the opportunity to share their horror stories. And I'd like to share just 2 anecdotes with you. One woman, a young mother, explained that despite the fact that she leaves work with ample time to make it home due to regular, extensive delays at the bus terminal, she has paid her daughter's daycare $500 to cover their $1 minimum fee for picking up her child late since the beginning of this year. $500 to her daughter's daycare because of the problem she has getting home. A job recruiter told us, and this was almost hard for me to believe, that many big employers in New York City hesitate to hire from certain towns in New Jersey because they know that employees will be habitually late. And these are just two of the stories I've brought with me. And I've also brought with me additional written testimony from many people who would like to express their concerns, but were unable to attend. And I have that written testimony, and for the record, if you will allow me, I'm going to disregard that. I am going to read the names of those who took the time to do the written testimony. Deborah Beauchart of Bergenfield, Daniel Cohen of Englewood, Lawrence Kirky, the former mayor of Leonia, Dee Friedman, who didn't give us a town, Joanne Gosell of Kenilworth, Kathy Hetlinger of Fort Lee, Bob Bruce and Sam Hoffman of Demarest, John Murphy of Westwood, Adam Tomzik of Saddlebrook, Laura Vogel of Englewood, and Andrew Wright of Hackensack. And I am encouraged by the initial efforts from the Port Authority. Yesterday, June 24th, my office received correspondence from Ms. Eiler, Deputy Director of the Port Authority's Tunnels, Bridges, and Terminals, acknowledging the physical and functional obsolescence of the bus terminal and pledging the authority's commitment to resolving short-term issues that were raised during the forum. And I want you to hear some of them. And picture yourself going through that terminal 5 days a week, trying to get home after a long day at work. The maintenance staff has been scheduled to cover the evening rush to ensure that all temperature sensors and heating, ventilating, and air conditioning are functioning properly. We really appreciate that the riders will have heat in the winter and air conditioning in the summer. Cameras are being installed at the top of the escalators to enable operations staff to more quickly identify escalator restart opportunities. So as you know, the escalators are turned off because of the long lines that go down through the escalators trying to get to the bus. Supervisors have been instructed to inspect all facility egress doors regularly to ensure they're in working order. And we're delighted that they are going to now look at all the exit doors and make sure they can be opened, if God forbid, in case of an emergency. Charging stations are being installed to enable customers to charge their personal electronic devices. This is what really got me. They're fine. You are preparing a construction contract to mitigate the 16 major ceiling leak locations throughout the terminal. Thank you very much. No, I'm not finished. I'm just thanking them for taking care of the 16 ceiling leaks throughout the bus terminal. While it is encouraging to see these efforts made, these fixes address concerns of basic safety, comfort, and convenience. And let me point out to you that New Jersey Transit, that's New Jersey, this side of the river, and I know many of you are from New Jersey. New Jersey Transit leases the space at the Port Authority bus terminal for $5 million a year. And New Jersey transit buses pay an additional $12 million a year in tolls. Inspection of egress doors leaking ceilings, when the Port Authority is receiving $17 million a year, essentially out of the pockets of the commuters that I represent and that many of you up here represent. It should not take public outcry to achieve things that should already be part of day-to-day operation. Though Governor Christie and I don't always see eye to eye, I happen to agree with his remarks that he made to Secretary Donovan in April of 2013 regarding the dispersal of Sandy money between New York and New Jersey. And I'm quoting the governor because I identify with those same remarks. Quote, "We always get a little paranoid about that, right? Because when we're in anything with New York, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, the Super Bowl with New York, there's always a little paranoia that we're going to get screwed. We know that, right?" End quote. Yeah, there's a little paranoia that we're always going to get screwed. The terminal is the largest in the United States and the busiest in the world, like the George Washington Bridge, by volume of traffic, serving about 8,000 buses and 225,000 people on an average weekday. In the 2014 capital plan, the authority has allocated $813 million, nearly one-third of its budget, to tunnels, bridges, and terminals, with over one-quarter of that money, of that one-third, going to something called the Lincoln Tunnel Access Infrastructure Enhancements. Be interesting to know exactly what that is. And although the George Washington bus station, the Uptown one, will be receiving $51 million, there is no substantial allocation made or earmarked to improve the conditions at the world's busiest Port Authority bus terminal in New York. Commissioner Lipper, I know that you have spoken up about the bus terminal, and I heard Commissioner Schuber mention it this afternoon. I hope that other members of the board will recognize the importance of this terminal, not only to the thousands of residents of New Jersey who ride buses into the terminal each day, but to the entire region. We've identified a critical infrastructure need, and I hope this is a new Port Authority, and I hope that we are going to see action quickly. The only thing we've been promised is, besides some of these short-term, we're going to fix the leaking ceilings, is that you're applying for a federal grant. Well, we don't know if we're going to get that grant, and if we do, how many years it will take to improve what we need to improve there. I thank you for your attention. I hope I don't have to come back too often, and that we are going to see this in your capital plan. And I was also glad, if I may comment, to hear Commissioner Schuber say to send a message to Mr. Silverstein that this is it. I just wish it had been it a few $100 million in the past, but better that it's it now. And a word, I see the people in the audience behind me, we did pass a resolution in the New Jersey State Senate actually supporting these employees, again, on this side of the river in New Jersey, so that they will get equal treatment with folks on the New York side. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Senator Weinberg. Also, just as a point of reference, at our capital planning meeting this morning, we had asked that the bus terminal be put on the agenda for our next meeting next month to figure out how we will actually incorporate it into the capital plan. And we've also successfully been selling off some of our land, which we went through this morning, which was creating over $100 million of proceeds that we've talked about allocating as much of those net proceeds as possible towards the bus terminal as a priority. So thank you. We have now Assemblyman Gordon Johnson.
Thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me to be here today. In the interest of time, I'll just say ditto. I think Senator Weinberg covered all the points I was going to bring out here today. We all know, you heard about the forum that we had with our District 37th commuters, constituents of ours. You heard the issues that they brought to the table. I've heard Commissioner Schuber and Commissioner Lipper, and also the chair here stated that it's in your capital plan. You're going to try to make those improvements to the bus station. So I'll just go on to my second point, which will be the members of Local 100 and Unite Here, that I'm hoping that they'll be treated equally like their colleagues in New York and their colleagues who did receive that pay raise earlier this year. So I know there's a meeting planned tomorrow. I'm hoping that they too will realize a real livable wage so they can increase their quality of life. And I'll close with that. So I won't repeat what you've heard already. So thank you for allowing me to be here today.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
If I might just add on something on that, too, for both Senator Weinberg and Assemblyman Johnson, that I noticed in your forum, too, that somebody raised an issue with regard to safety and some things along those lines, and we addressed that we were addressing that at our security meeting this morning, and to the extent I can say anything, I'll just say that we have a new police class that's out there right now, and we're looking to add to the complement of police officers that are at the facility itself. I've told people here that I used to work in that facility many, many years ago, and I go through it only not 5 days a week as commuters do, but 1 day a week on the way into school. But that's an issue for us that we want to make sure that we address also. Obviously, the main issue for us is to replace the facility, obviously, but in the short term, that's an issue for us that we'd like to address also.
Thank you, Commissioner Schubert. Our next speaker is Michael Carey.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. My name is Michael Carey. I'm a security officer at JFK Airport, Terminal 7. I've been working there for 5 years, and I'm making $8.50 an hour. Now, in contrast, the unionized or the direct port contracted security officers, they make twice or more than we do, plus they have benefits. And I'm very happy for them because they deserve it. But so do we. And we must applaud the Port Authority for making the first steps in seeing our goals recognized, because they have put some things in places, and they are going forward with us. But the most important thing is that we need a union. We need a recognized union in 32BJ, and that is our plea right now. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gertrude Contreras.
I'll be translating for Gertrudes.
Buenas tardes con todos. Muchas gracias por recibirme esta tarde. Mi nombre es Gertrudis Contreras. Trabajo para la compañía Fly en el aeropuerto de Newark.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for receiving me here today. My name is Gertrudis Contreras. I work for Prime Flight at Newark International Airport as a cabin cleaner.
Yo trabajo limpiando aviones en cabin cleaning. Les quiero dar las gracias a Port Authority por los regulares que han pasado. Pero nosotros en Newark no hemos tenido ningún aumento. Por eso que necesitamos la ayuda de 32BJ.
As I said, I work as a cabin cleaner for Prime Flight at Newark International Airport, but we have not seen any of the raises that some of the airport workers in the other side of the river have received.
Para poder mejorar nuestras condiciones como trabajadores y para sustentar nuestras familias, necesitamos que nos reconozca nuestro trabajo y darnos un buen aumento.
She would like her work to be recognized as those as others that she works alongside that have a living wage. She thanks the Port Authority for the regulations that they have passed, but they have still not seen any of those, benefits.
Hay en el aeropuerto de Newark trabajadores que ganan $15 la hora. ¿Por qué nosotros también trabajamos igual como ellos? También merecemos igual sueldo.
As she has said, there are workers that do the same line of work that she does. They make, living wages that they as well deserve those living wages so they could sustain their families.
Porque todos nosotros como personas, seres humanos, también nos merecemos respeto con nuestros jefes de nuestra compañía, de los cuales que nosotros como trabajadores somos guardianes del aeropuerto de Newark y de los aviones que salen y vienen internacional y doméstico. Somos guardianes nosotros.
She's like, we deserve respect in the work that we do. We are the direct guardians of the aircrafts and take care of our passengers with care, so we deserve this respect.
Muchas gracias por escucharme. Ojalá llegue a su corazón los pedidos de los trabajadores del aeropuerto de Newark y también de Nueva Jersey, todos los trabajadores. Muchísimas gracias. Muy buenas tardes.
Thank you for listening. Have a good afternoon.
Our next speaker is Benjamin Jimenez. Jimenez?
Very good.
Jimenez?
Here is H.
There we go.
Jimenez.
I'm going to have you read this off for me.
Makes you cool.
Good afternoon to all. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be up here and represent my union brothers and sisters. My name is Benjamin Jimenez, and I work for Allied Barton at EWR. And the Port Authority has done right by me and my family. I'm very grateful for that. My employer has a direct contract with the Port Authority, and I earn a very decent living wage, and I have health care. I'm here not only to ask, but to urge the airlines, the employers, and the Port Authority to extend these standards to the 12,000 plus non-union subcontracted workers at the 3 airports. This is the right thing to do for them, and it protects me, my family, and my union contract from a race to the bottom. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Francisco Espinal.
Good afternoon, Port Authority and board and staff. My name is Francisco Espinal. Although I said good afternoon, I have to say I'm not feeling good about the news that not all airport workers will be included to the $10.10 minimum. When we came before the board a couple of months ago, it appeared that all airport workers would be immediately included. I was looking forward to getting a better living wage and have more resources for my family that you see before me. Well, we're disappointed. I and my coworkers, thousands of concessions and catering employees will not lose hope or give up a fight for the $10.10 for all. And we look forward in coming to next month's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Henry Pacheco.
Good afternoon, Port Authority board and staff. My name is Henry Pacheco. This is my first time speaking at a port board meeting. But I just wanted to take an opportunity to say how happy my coworkers and I were when we heard about the board's vote to raise airport workers' wages. My coworkers and I are proud members of Unite Here Local 100. Everyone here is an airport concession worker from Newark, JFK, or LaGuardia, and took their time off to show their support for the wage increase for all Port Authority workers. We are one voice, one pay. We all deserve 10-10. We would not like to be the tails of the two airports. Thank you for your time.
Our next two speakers asked to be called up together, Alex Walter and Shirley Charles.
Good afternoon, Port Authority, board, and staff. My name is Alex Walters. I'm a member of United Here Local 100. I work for HMS Host at Newark Airport as a receiver for 6 years. I am here today because I believe that all airport employees deserve a minimum wage of at least $10.10 an hour. I will continue to be here urging the board to grant 10-10 for all. Thank you.
Do you remember the thousands of signatures of workers on our petition? Right here.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Neil Weissman.
The bicycle guy? He's the bicycle guy.
Yeah.
No?
Is-
Chairman Reckler, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak on expanding the bike path on the George Washington Bridge, and a quick note of appreciation for the work you do. So, thank you. In April, I shared with you a traffic count on the GWB South Path, 382 users per hour, which is well above the American Highway Safety and Traffic Officers threshold for high use. Early this month, I did a follow-up study. Sunday morning, 536 users per hour, including 10% pedestrians and runners. Then in early evening, only 289 users, but 30% pedestrians, which actually grades worse because a pedestrian moving at 3 miles an hour stays on the bridge 4 times longer than a cyclist at 12. And the nearest available relief that you've announced is in 2024 when both paths come online. So I would ask you to consider some inexpensive measures to bring the north path online as soon as possible. To span the northbound exit on the Palisade Interstate Parkway, a prefabricated Bailey Bridge, 40 feet by a 14-foot main span, 14-foot clearance, 5% ramps. That effectively bypasses all the stairs on the New Jersey side. On the New York side, restripe the ramp from Fort Washington to create a 14-foot shoulder. You've got 28 feet at that point. I believe you can do this. Then remove a section of wall to expose the access under the Henry Hudson Drive ramps. That eliminates the steps up from 179th Street. That's it. You've now bypassed 3/4 of the 171 steps, and that is manageable for most able-bodied cyclists. And those that can keep using the South Path. And to be clear, this is a quick fix. It only until you start recabling. But at an estimated $1.5 million just for the Bailey Bridge, you can bring both paths online in months rather than years. Just one side note. I bicycle the bridge a number of times a month, and I'm as experienced a cyclist as you're going to find. It's scary. It's the facility. The numbers aside, the facility is being slammed right now. Some cyclists have speculated that you might open up a lane of traffic, when it gets to that point. It's at that point now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michael Klatsky.
Good afternoon. I'm here to speak to the commissioners and all the staff at the port about the Port Authority bus terminal and building on the senator's comments as well as our assemblymen to improve operations. At the forum where many of your staff came to hear us out and listen to what we had to say, and actually were very responsive to quite a few of our comments. The number one thing that we've learned from the Deputy Director of Facilities and Tunnels is that circulation is the problem. Buses cannot arrive, long lines ensue, buses cannot leave, so basically you have problems on both ends. What I'm urging you to do today is take a look back in studies you've done in the past. In 1964, you did the first study for an exclusive bus lane. You took about a year. The actual study is actually in the New York City City Library archives. I had a look at it a few months ago. It's not very detailed. It's just they looked at it, they saw a problem, and they fixed it. In 2005, you requested a grant to do the same thing again and have a second bus lane, whether it's in the morning or 2 bus lanes in the afternoon. And they came up with several possible solutions. I urge the Port Authority to look at those solutions and find a way to implement them. Route 495 is the access road to the Lincoln Tunnel and the Port Authority bus terminal. It is well within the purview of the Port Authority to spend a small amount of money just to put up some cones to put up a second bus lane in the morning or just 1 bus lane in the afternoon. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mario Gomez.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm a representative of IBW Local Number 3 Support Authority Division. I speak before you today on behalf of the 200-plus electricians employed by this agency to inform you that despite no wage increases since 2005, our bargaining unit continues to perform above and beyond the normal call of duty, as is currently the case with aviation safety-related repairs at our airports. Poor maintenance management practices have contributed to the electrical infrastructure-related debacle that continues to unfold around us, potentially putting public safety at risk and exposing incompetence at various levels. Let's face it, those responsible either didn't understand the deteriorated state of our electrical infrastructure or knew but failed to take appropriate corrective measures. Neither case is acceptable. Outdated approaches to maintenance management have been the norm for many years and are frequently concealed by the excessive amount of work that is contracted out on a regular basis. Contracting out of maintenance functions creates the illusion
that more is being achieved with less. But it's not cost effective, and it hides the true headcount needed to perform this work properly. This so-called new business model is what got us in trouble to begin with and has failed to address the following root causes of this systemic failure: insufficient manpower, narrow span of control, and efficient allocation of overtime. Inadequate workforce training and development, lack of standardized methods and best practices approach to maintenance management, obsolete preventive maintenance strategies and informational databases. It's time that management start doing their job and stop contracting out hours, that we expect accountability for the long-term deterioration of our infrastructure and exposing incompetence and waste of public resources. We need managers and senior supervisors with real knowledge and understanding of the maintenance crafts, real leaders with actual well-rounded and demonstrable qualifications in their areas of responsibility, not others without experience and expertise in the maintenance trades professions. Commissioners, if I may, I'd like to leave with you a 2011 report by the New York State Comptroller's Office titled Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Contracts for Personal and Miscellaneous Services, that will provide additional evidence of wasteful contracting practices. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Art Batsky.
Good afternoon. Oops. I thought I'd make a few comments as well about the Port Authority bus terminal and about the Port Authority and its structure myself. I've used the Port Authority bus terminal. I haven't had the bad luck that so many of the people that came to the TNEC session had to report to, but I thought it was important that this is a business, this is a service the Port Authority provides, and the bus terminal is probably the buses are the most humblest form of transportation that we depend on. There's the private car, there's the highways and bridges, there's boats, ferries. We're just talking about buses, getting groups of people together. And if the Port Authority bus terminal is a business, it should have been concerned about the quality of services it delivers to the people who use it. What was clear is that there hasn't been concern. This has gone on too long. And if this is a new Port Authority, then this should be, among your other, everything should be a number one priority. So should the Port Authority bus terminal. I can understand those people who depend on going through that terminal twice a day, 250 days a week, 500 times a year, feeling like cash cows. They're paying every fee, tax, everything. They don't get free bus service. And then they get leaks on their head and all these other different things. And the prior board was here. The prior board should have known about it. What I want to say about money, because you mentioned Mr. Silverstein, money can go both ways. It can go out, it can come in. Time only goes one way. And these people, 500 times a year, have to see their time go away. They're not at work. They're not with their families. There's a schedule. It doesn't matter. Please, 10 years ago, it should have been addressed by now. If you were a business, it would have been addressed by now. But you're an authority, and you have different freedoms that private business doesn't have. Now, I'll mention one other thing. Governance, okay? After the Americans won the Revolutionary War, we had a form of government. It was called a confederation. Nobody liked it. It did not work. They changed it. The Port Authority has to change its form of government with the two governors and using it for a finish it yourselves.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Donna Jackson.
Good afternoon.
I guess we could be happy about a few of the plans, but I'd like to know who came up with $7 million to study the taxiing at Newark Airport. I'm not going to allow that. Not going to allow it. I'm going right back to Newark. I'm going to call a community meeting. You guys have lost your mind. We are not going to keep paying private business millions and millions of dollars to study nothing. You already know what the issue is. You said it in the report. So what is there to study? Make the area bigger, get the planes in and out, get the people moving, and do it. Why does somebody have to make $7 million, which we know they're going to come and do added on later? That's probably going to be $15 million. You could care less, not your money. This is crazy. Now, they say it's a new port authority. I can't tell. Same people, same vote, couple of voices of opposition, but it's still rubber stamp. Yes, 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 yes. Wow. Dare somebody to vote no. Dare you. This is ridiculous. You still have not come to Newark. Ain't came to Essex County to have a community meeting about the new Terminal A. When's that going to happen? I don't think there's been any public outshowing of any of this transformation that you're doing. Thus, they would not have to come here today and talk about the bus terminal for 2 hours. You guys, if you're going to be new, I dare you to show us. Dare you to buck the governors who tell you what to do. Dare you to tell private business we are not going to continue in this country the same thing we're doing in education, the same thing we're doing here. Bringing all the private entity. The young man just spoke from the Electricians Club. You're trying to put them out of work. We know what this is. Contracting out is no more than your pay-to-play contracts to take care of your friends and family. And it needs to stop. It really needs to stop. You guys need to take care of this wage issue. Please take care of it. I know 2 meetings ago I told you we'll park 40, 50 cars. I know you say, oh, that lady's crazy. She won't do it. Please don't make me, because I will. I really will. And it ain't going to take but one car to mess up LaGuardia and Kennedy. You got enough traffic over there now. Just one car parked the wrong way, nothing to move. Because those airports are out of control. You guys know it's an issue. You know it. Nobody has to come here and tell you. So how about let's do the right thing? How about tell both of the governors who appointed you, hey, listen, friend, guess what? I don't want to hear that lady, Miss Jackson, anymore telling me that I'm doing pay to play, because that's what you're doing. This is nothing but Port Authority, New York and New Jersey, too. That's all. Same business. If you guys are different, show us. We can't see it. Still can't. Make the information public. Come do your public hearings. Take the criticisms. Take the great part. Let us all be a partner. I could be a partner. But I'm not spending $7 million at Newark Airport, ma'am. So you tell Krispy Kreme, Donna Jackson said no.
Next speaker is Cassandra Dock.
There's another one.
Hey, buddy. Cassandra Dock, Newark. Well, let me say this to you, buddy. Don't nobody believe nothing the representative from Mr. Silverstein's organization, we don't believe nothing he said. Sir, Mr. Dunn. Is it Dunn? Doom. We don't believe nothing they said up here about transparency. We don't even believe you about crime being down. Don't believe it. None of it. So you talking about there doesn't need to be a debate? It does. Because if we had a debate, then we would prove that everything you said up here today, lies, not true. Now, that's not what I came here for. I came here to talk about the Water Commission. I see there's a Water Commission that's been created. Good thing. I think they're having a community meeting on Monday. You going to be there? Anybody going to be there? You don't know nothing about it, do you? Well, there is one. Find out where it's going to be. Find out what time, and be there. Next, let me talk about the fact that Vice President, right? You're the Vice President, right? Right? I'm going to say VP because I might mess your name up. I said to you on that day, Mr. Sampson's last day here, I knew that day was coming. Didn't know it was coming that soon. I told you to get used to that position, right? But shortly after I said to you to get used to that position, you had to recuse yourself on like the third agenda item. What is going on over here? And then after I forget who it was that spoke, then it hit me. The reason you all have to recuse recused yourself is because you're all associated with everything that comes on this agenda. You either a union member, as somebody said, or you in the real estate business, or you in the finance business. Nope, we're not doing $6 million. We're not doing it. Planning for what? What you planning for? Who is the company? Who's doing it? You know them? Friends? Uncles? Cousin? We're not doing it. New Port Authority, huh? New. Well, what's new about it? I know. You're new. You're new, sir. That's what's new about the Port Authority. We have a new member to the Port Authority. You know what we need to do? You know what we really need to do with this organization? Perhaps we need to stop appointing you and start electing you. Perhaps this needs to be an elected board and not an appointed commission. Because this is awful. And then we're going to talk about that Skyway. Really? Really? You sat here, you let him do it again, didn't you? You sat here and you let the governor, who's my friend, call him up. Tell him. Cassandra Doc was here again. He'll tell you, we're friends. But friends don't let friends do certain things. He's not driving drunk. You know that commercial. So I'm not letting him do that. Thank you, sir. You better do something over here. You better do something, and you better get that Pulaski Skyway. Whatever happened with that Pulaski Skyway, you better get it in order. That $6 million, you better spend it and find out what he did and why he did it. This is crazy over here, and you better knock it off. Get to that meeting Monday. Thank you. Have a good evening.
We have Murray Bowden was able to save some time, right, Murray? Did you not finish? Did you want to go back up, you said? Okay.
I got 2 minutes.
You got 2 minutes.
I dumped what I was going to say before. Not only have you changed up there, they're beginning to change over here. I used the word new. It's been repeated a half a dozen times. It will take time for people to realize just how much you have changed. Change comes very slowly, but it's here. It starts with a realization that we have to look at things new. You're looking at things new. They're looking at things new. It's a process. It will get there. It will take time, but it's moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Murray. Appreciate that cleanup.
That's it.
So we have several other items on today's agenda for which a brief report will be provided prior to the matter being considered by the board. As Vice Chair of the Committee of Operations, I will now submit an item that would authorize a supplemental agreement for the design, installation, operation, and maintenance of an expanded wireless telecommunications Wi-Fi network, which would provide 30 minutes of free public Wi-Fi access at John F. Kennedy International Airport, Newark Liberty International, LaGuardia, and Stewart International Airports. Prior to making this motion on this item, I'd like to ask the Corporate Secretary to know any commission recusal on this matter.
There were no recusals.
Okay, I think we have one speaker on this matter. Stephen Sigmund, are you here? So, yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Steve Sigmund, the Executive Director of Global Gateway Alliance. We're here to urge passage of this item from the board of the Global Gateway Alliance, which includes organizations like ABNY, the Partnership for New York City, Thor Equities, RWDSU, the Teamsters, the Hotel Association and Hotel Workers, Zagat Surveys, NYU, and many others who are very involved with this city and this region and recognize the importance of this item. The agreement to offer free Wi-Fi at the Port Authority's airports is a win for New York and New Jersey, but most important, it's a win for more than 111 million passengers. GGA has long advocated for free Wi-Fi at the region's airport. We issued a study last year showing that LaGuardia, JFK, and Newark were 3 of only 5 major airports in the U.S. that did not have free Wi-Fi, and the top 15 worldwide airports all offered this amenity. Today's action will bring us on par with these competitors and take our airports a big step closer to excellence. The previous contract was from a bygone era. In this age of constant connectivity, free Wi-Fi is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. And we thank the Port Authority, Boingo, and Governors Christie and Cuomo for working to renegotiate an outdated contract that held our airports back from a 21st century convenience for passengers. New York and New Jersey airports are responsible for passengers' first and last impressions of our region, and a substantial period of free Wi-Fi will go a long way to ensuring that impression is positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any comments on this matter? I'll now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Kevin, second?
Second.
Okay. I'd like to have the Corporate Secretary do a roll call vote on this matter.
Chairman Reckler,
In favor?
Commissioner Lipper. Yes. Commissioner Linford.
Yes.
Commissioner Myrtla.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino.
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado. Yes. Commissioner Schubert.
Yes.
Commissioner Steiner.
Yes.
Okay. As the votes are in order, the item is approved. The next item under the purview of the Committee on Operations would authorize the sale of certain real property and transferable development rights located adjacent to Dyer Avenue between 33rd and 34th Streets in the borough of Manhattan. These parcels are no longer required by the Port Authority for the purpose of which they were acquired and would be sold to the highest rated proposer, the Dermott Company, for private commercial real estate development purposes at a sale price of approximately $115 million. I should note that this sale is the result of ongoing discussions with the staff to determine assets that could be sold to generate capital for reinvestment in the Port Authority's core transportation infrastructure, including the bus terminal. Prior to making this motion, I'd like to ask the Corporate Secretary if there's any recusals related to this matter.
There are no recusals.
Do any of the commissioners have any comments related to this matter?
Just if I might, Mr. Chairman, just a furtherance of your discussion too, with regard to the desire on the part of the port going forward to review its land bank, so to speak, for the purpose of reviewing properties for which we no longer have foreseeable use, and return that money back to the port and hopefully move it into the transportation projects, as you said, particularly hopefully the Port Authority bus terminal. So I fully support this measure.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I'd like to ask the roll call vote now from the Secretary.
Chairman Reckler.
I'm in favor.
Commissioner Lipper.
Yes.
Commissioner Linford.
Yes.
Commissioner Myrtla.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino.
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado. Yes. Commissioner Schubert.
Yes.
Commissioner Steiner.
Yes.
Okay, as the votes are in order, the item is approved. The next item under the Committee on Operations purview would authorize a contract with Johnson Controls to implement certain energy conservation improvements at John F. Kennedy National Airport at a maximum price of $7.5 million, which would yield guaranteed annual operating savings of approximately $700,000 and approximately $10.5 million in aggregate savings to the Port Authority over a 15-year term. I'd like to ask the Corporate Secretary to know if there's any recusals on this matter.
Commissioner Lipper is recused on this matter.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any comments? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Yes.
Can the Secretary read the roll call vote, please?
Chairman Reckler.
I'm in favor.
Commissioner Lipper.
Accused.
Commissioner Linford.
Yes.
Commissioner Myrtla.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino.
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado. Yes. Commissioner Schubert.
Yes.
Commissioner Steiner.
Yes.
Okay, so we have the votes are in order. The item is approved. As chair of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, I'll now submit an item for the board's consideration which provides for $6.3 million to study the feasibility of developing end-around taxiways for runway 4L-22R at Newark Liberty International Airport. This item is part of the Port Authority's ongoing efforts to seek ways to reduce runway delays at our airports.
So moved.
The future implementation of the project would result in 960 total job years, $71 million in wages, and $360 million in economic activity. I'd like to ask the Corporate Secretary to know if there's any recusals related to this matter.
There are no recusals.
Okay. Do any commissioners have any comments? Okay. Motion, please.
Motion.
Second?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Please give a roll call vote.
Chairman Reckler.
I'm in favor.
Commissioner Lipper. Favor. Commissioner Linford.
Yes.
Commissioner Myrtla.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino.
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado. Yes. Commissioner Schubert.
Yes.
Commissioner Steiner.
Yes.
Okay, as the votes are in order, the item is approved. The next item under the purview of the the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management would authorize the reallocations of funds previously authorized by the board in connection with the implementation of new toll collection infrastructure to provide for certain investment in the existing toll collection system at the Port Authority's bridges and tunnels. This item also authorizes certain other contractual commitments to accommodate the continued operation and maintenance of the toll collection system, the future introduction of all electronic tolling at the Bayonne Bridge, and to continue the development of a replacement toll collection system. Prior to making this motion, I'd like to ask the Corporate Secretary to know if there's any recusals.
There are no recusals.
Okay. Do any commissioners have any comments? Okay. Can I have a motion, please? Motion. Do I have a second?
I'll be right down. Thank you.
Okay. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Yeah.
Chairman Reckler.
I'm in favor.
Commissioner Lipper.
Favor.
Commissioner Linford.
Yes.
Commissioner Myrtla.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino.
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado.
Yes.
Commissioner Schubert.
Yes.
Commissioner Steiner.
Yes.
Okay. As the votes are in order, the item is approved, and Commissioner Steiner's off the phone, so we can move on to the next.
Yes on everything else, please, but I gotta go.
The next item under this committee on capital planning, execution, and asset management's purview.
Thank you.
Would authorize. Thank you. Would author.
Stay.
You stay for 5 minutes. Stay 5 minutes. I'll skip around. I'll get you there. Would authorize a program for the purchase of certain pieces of equipment required to support various Hurricane Sandy recovery and storm resilience projects currently underway at PATH at a total cost of $72 million. These costs are expected to be substantially recovered via Federal Transit Administration grants. Prior to making this motion, I'd like to ask the Secretary if there's any, if the Secretary has any recusals related to this matter.
No recusals.
I'm trying to read as fast as I can.
Well, keep going.
I'm working.
Give me any
Okay.
excuses.
Are there any comments? Okay. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
So move. Second.
Okay. Could you please continue with the roll call vote?
Chairman Reckler.
I'm in favor.
Commissioner Lipper. Yes. Commissioner Linford.
Yes.
Commissioner Merdla.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino.
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado. Commissioner Schubert. Commissioner Steiner.
Yes, thank God.
As the votes are in order, the item is approved. As the next item, I'm recused of the next two matters to be considered. I'll ask Commissioner Pacino if he would mind running those reports for me.
Thank you, Vice Chairman.
There's only one more, 11.
On behalf of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, I wish to submit an item for the Board's consideration that would authorize a project for the replacement of PATH Substation 9 and to retain architectural and engineering services to support the design and implementation of the project at a total estimated project cost of $59.5 million. The project would result in 250 total job years, $17 million in wages, and $92 million in economic activity. Prior to making a motion on this item, I would ask the Corporate Secretary to note any Commissioner's recusals.
Commissioner Reckler and Commissioner Merdla are recused.
Do any of the Commissioners have any comments on this item? Hearing none, I will now request a motion on this item.
Second.
Okay, we have the second. I will now request the Corporate Secretary to call a roll for voting on this item.
Commissioner Reckler.
Recused.
Commissioner Lipper.
Yes.
Commissioner Linford.
Recused.
No. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Merdla.
Recused.
Commissioner Pacino.
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado.
Yes.
Commissioner Schubert.
Yes.
Commissioner Steiner.
Yes.
Votes are in order. The item is approved. Next up, we have a matter concerning the World Trade Center site, which is under the purview of the World Trade Center Site Redevelopment Subcommittee. The item would authorize additional expenditures totaling $23.44 million for construction contracts to repair and replace facilities and equipment at the World Trade Center site that were damaged or destroyed by Hurricane Sandy and its associated storm surge. Prior to making a motion on this item, I would ask the Corporate Secretary to note any Commissioner recusals on this matter.
Chairman Reckler and Commissioner Merdla are recused.
Any of the Commissioners have any comments on this project? Hearing none, I will now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. I will now request the Corporate Secretary to call the roll call for voting on this item.
Vice Chairman Reckler.
Recused.
Commissioner Lipper.
Yes.
Commissioner Linford.
Yes.
Commissioner Merdla.
Recused.
Commissioner Pacino.
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado.
Yes.
Commissioner Schubert.
Yes.
Commissioner Steiner.
Yes.
Votes are in order. The item is approved. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you. The next item would authorize additional expenditures totaling $560,000 for architectural and engineering design, construction support, and other consulting services to effectuate the ongoing repair and replace facilities and equipment at the World Trade Center site that were damaged or destroyed by Hurricane Sandy and its associated storm surge. Prior to making the motion, I'll ask the Corporate Secretary to note any recusals.
There are no recusals.
Okay, any Commissioner have any comments? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second? Okay, Secretary, please read for roll call vote.
Chairman Reckler.
I'm in favor.
Commissioner Lipper.
Yes.
Commissioner Linford.
Yes.
Commissioner Merdla.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino.
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado.
Yes.
Commissioner Schubert.
Yes.
Commissioner Steiner.
Yes.
Okay, we have the votes are in order. The item is approved. In view of the fact that as a result of the prospective recusals, there are not sufficient number of commissioners present for the board to consider certain matters on today's agenda, consistent with the Port Authority's bylaws, a special meeting of the Committee on Operations to act for and on behalf of the board will now be held. May I have a motion to adjourn the board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the meeting is now adjourned.
No, 1 minute.
No, let's go ahead. Commissioner
All right,
Pacino.
thank you, Vice Chairman. I hereby call to order a special meeting of the Committee on Operations. And co-managers to provide underwriting services to support future Port Authority debt issuances for up to 3 years. Prior to making a motion on this item, I would ask the Corporate Secretary to note any commissioners' recusals on this matter.
Of the commissioners participating at this special meeting of the Committee on Operations, there are no recusals required.
Do any of the commissioners have any comments on this item? Hearing none, I will now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Second? Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I will.
Third, too.
I will now request the Corporate Secretary to call the roll for voting on this item.
Commissioner Lipper?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Votes are in order. The item is approved.
We'll now adjourn the special committee, the Special Operations Committee.
Take care.
And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Okay.
Sloppy but done.